like that, right?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 5:30, and I will call this work session of the Burnsville City Council to order. The clerk will note all council members are present. And also, tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. Members of the public may attend in person if they like, or the public can also watch our meeting online or at burnsvillemn.gov/meetings or on Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public can also participate through Zoom by joining us at zoom.us/join. More information is available on our meetings webpage and in a council agenda packet. And our work sessions are very informal, and we go directly to the items that's on the agenda for this evening. And the first item on the agenda is our community survey administration. And City Manager Lindberg, do you want to have any remarks before our Human Resource Director, Mike Tracy, takes over?
No, Madam Mayor, I'll turn it over to Mike Tracy.
Okay, Mr. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we are here to talk, thank you, about the community survey that we do regularly. Excuse me, to get the pulse of the community. Just a quick little background for Council and for the community. Our survey provides us with information both from residents and from businesses. The purpose of it is to help us understand community needs and experiences, as well as help us understand how we compare to others, whether it's regional or national comparatives. So historically, we have conducted these surveys every 4 years. Typically during a presidential election year. The exclusion to that was in 2021. We did not run the survey in 2020. We always use a statistically valid survey methodology. And then in 2021, the city partnered with Cobalt Research to conduct the community survey. We used a different consultant in previous years. So we reached out to several comparable communities around us just to kind of get an idea of what they do for community surveys. More just for council and for staff education purposes. As you'll see there, Burnsville, we do every 4 years, as I mentioned. Our sample size is 2,000, both for residential and business surveys. And the interesting thing of note here, as you'll see, we're the only one that we reached out to that does business surveys. Most other communities just focus on their residential population. And there's a good kind of range of frequency, whether it's every 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And in one case, as you'll see here in Lakeville, they do it every 5 years. So kind of runs a wide range in terms of frequency, and the sample size varies anywhere between 1,500 to about 4,200. So we're right in the ballpark in terms of what our sample size is. As I mentioned before, we've always used a statistically valid survey methodology. The reason for this is to better reflect, the results better reflect the population of the city, or the entire population of the city. It helps reduce biases in the results. You're not just hearing from the most vocal or the loudest in the community. You're hearing from the base and the full range of the population. So tonight, there's several questions that we have for council in terms of direction for the community survey. It was in our work plan to do the survey in 2024, kind of keeping in line with the every 4 years during a presidential election. We'll talk about the survey administration here in the next slide in terms of what council would like to see staff do moving forward with the survey. But I'd like to start a little bit with the outcomes. So focusing on these 3 questions, and I'll start kind of one at a time. But looking at previous surveys, both in 2021 and in previous surveys that we've conducted, what information did council find useful in those? In the results, both from the residential and the business survey?
Council members, what are your thoughts? Did you go through all of the questions? Because I looked at the questions and they're okay. So because I was looking at our strategic priorities. But in reading all of the questions, it incorporates some of that, but it's pulling it out from all the different areas, because there's over 183 questions. Is that, I'm just wondering, because all of this is phone calls, right?
They are mailed, so phone calls used to be the primary
Yeah.
method for conducting these
Okay,
surveys, but
But
over
this one now,
time.
they're mailing it out?
Correct.
So
Yep.
what's the return if you mail it out?
So in the previous survey, we got about 365 completed surveys out of the 2,000 that were sent out.
Well, that's one of the questions, is that, I don't know, council, what did you think of the questions? Yes,
Well, I went back through it, there's like 28 questions in there, 29, 30, 31, 32, here, 33 questions in the residential, and then about 20 some in the business, 22. They're,
There-
I'm looking at the 2021.
they're two different, yeah,
Yeah,
because,
I just focused on the most recent one, the 2021 Burnsville Residential Engagement and Priority Study. And then the business one. It seemed like a long time ago. That, for whatever the reason, that seemed like a long time ago. And I thought the questions actually were pretty good.
Yeah.
And pretty thorough.
yeah,
I was trying to think of, okay, what did we miss? And the only thing I'm concerned about is I think the sample size is too small.
2,000?
Yeah, I think we
Out
need
of
to go
65.
much bigger than that from a sample size. Now, having done some surveys, statistical validation happens at about 250, 270 respondents. So as long as we've gotten that many, it wouldn't matter if we got 500 or 700 or 1,000. The results would almost be identical. So
Yeah.
as long as we're getting at least,
300 and,
that many.
360, did you say was the return?
Correct,
Yeah,
365.
we've got a statistically valid sampling,
Yeah,
and
that's
it is
what I
a
was
very
thinking.
rock solid.
That's
You know,
what I
A lot
was
of people
thinking.
could relate this to national sampling,
Yeah.
right? Most polls are around 1,100 to 1,300 respondents, and as long as they have represented all of the various groups
Mm-hmm.
within that 11 to 1,300, it's a statistically valid sampling
Yeah.
that could be replicated across the country. And if it was 50,000 respondents, the results would be almost identical. So we've hit that number and again some over the 250, 270. So I just, you always want to hear from more people, but the end result is actually going to be pretty much the same. And really, the only difference is maybe if you have an open-ended question, you get a lot more color commentary, right? Comments. Like they'll check all these boxes, but then when you throw out an open box and allow them to just answer a question in their own way, then more respondents can give you a little bit more of that sort of, almost like an intercept survey. Like if you stood in front and asked them that question, how would they answer it, right?
And they do that because they have some open-ended questions.
Yeah.
So they have some of that.
Yep, so the more of those we get, I think, the better it sort of fills in the blanks, but those box checks are gonna not change beyond that, to call it 270 number and above.
Correct, Mayor and Council. So I think that is a key point. So when we talk about statistically valid survey, we do have some open-ended questions in the survey. We certainly can look at adding additional if we'd like to. Obviously, in terms of benchmarking and things of that nature, that we wouldn't get necessarily that data comparison with asking more open-ended questions. We also, in terms of reach for community members, last time we did also post a survey, I believe on our socials, or had open link. So anyone who didn't get the survey mailed to them, any of those 2,000 people, could fill out the survey. It just wasn't included in the statistically valid survey results, but we still got access to that data. So that's certainly something that we anticipate doing again.
Yeah. Well, I like, because it'll also give us the diversity of our community.
Well, that's the other point. is
Yeah.
For us, because we are so diverse now, is the folks that are answering our survey of a correct representation or an accurate representation of the breadth of our
Yeah.
diversity within the community.
Yeah.
And that would be the only thing that might be tough for us to try and do, but that's what the national polls.
Well, because I
do
look at it with what we
intently.
get from the Met Council to see the diversity of our community and then our survey and what it communicates to us and to see the balance between those two. So anybody else? Are you okay with the questions? Because they
Yeah,
have
I
some
tried
open-ended ones
honestly
that
to
I thought
find
were okay.
opportunities where I thought we might add a question that we maybe didn't do in 2021, but it's a pretty thorough.
It's pretty thorough, I thought,
Yeah.
I think it is too.
because I was looking at all of our, what our strategic priorities are, but it's incorporated in the survey, so.
Did we by chance run the business survey, or are we planning to run it by the business community, the chamber, to just get their input on what questions that they might want to include this year, if there's one or two that they would like to add, or maybe one that they might want to recommend that we pull out or swap out?
Yeah.
We absolutely.
Mike and Greg,
Absolutely, yeah.
we have time to get that feedback. When do we have to run these?
Correct. Well, that's a good segue to the next set of questions.
When?
Yeah.
So, part of it is dealing with the administration of it. So as I said, we've always done it every 4 years. We've always done it during a presidential election year. If we were to continue that trend, we would need to move pretty quickly, obviously, as
Yeah.
we're sitting here towards Q3 now of 2024.
Yeah,
So, I will say, in consultation with our consultant, and talking with staff, we believe getting off the presidential election cycle makes sense, and would be in line with what we did in 2021. To that end, if council wishes to push it to a non-presidential year, we would have some time then
so
to.
we want to go what, gubernatorial?
We're doing off, like odd.
So
odd
in,
years.
so neither presidential nor gubernatorial,
Which
Non-election
would
Yes.
be
And
25,
and on election
right?
night?
Non-crazy
Yeah.
season.
4 years after
Sure.
2021.
Sure,
Yeah, for next year, that gives us time to pull some.
so that would be, then we'll
stakeholders.
just delay it till next year,
Right.
then we can get input. What do you think, Greg? What do you?
Madam
have-
Mayor, members of the council, I agree with Councilmember Keeley in the suggestion that I'm generally seeing around the table that I think getting off an election cycle makes a lot of sense. I think those off years, I don't know if there were supposed to be two offs in that statement, but looking at 2025 also makes sense. We heard very loud and clear from Cobalt and as a team in our conversations that we felt that we would get better results and better attention in terms of participation and in interest.
Then I would say if that's what the consultants also suggest, then I would say we go to 2025. That'll give us some time to also get feedback from other stakeholders.
Yeah, CVB, chamber, and maybe others.
School district,
School
if-
district, yes, because I noticed we had a question in there
Yeah.
about school quality. And that
Yeah.
one actually took me off guard.
Yeah.
I forgot that we had added that
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Vincent Danji, any,
No, I'm good with it.
okay,
I do have a quick follow-up question. So the people that came to the survey not from mailers, we tracked that information, but it was not part of the statistically valid result, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
yeah.
Is there a way to validate those people to get them rolled into that statistically valid? And the reason I ask is because I feel like we're gonna get more engagement through our social media outlets because that's where people exist, right? If there was a way for them to like verify their address or something like that, to roll that in, because I think we are probably missing out on a lot of responses by excluding that group.
Certainly can work with our consultant to see what we can do in terms of making it easier to access or I will say, in terms of validating or making it statistically valid, they mail like a unique code with each survey to make sure that it is going to that one individual, that they can't potentially submit multiple survey results.
Yeah.
So to that end, they're pretty strict in terms of what they view as statistically valid.
Could someone go online and request a survey? I don't know. I don't want to get stuck in the weeds on that.
So I think the mayor,
Yeah.
council members, I think the short answer is yes, we can talk to our partners about different ways of approaching that engagement. At the end of the day, we hire them to create a statistically valid sample size and sampling of the community. I'm not smart when it comes to that stuff, so we'll ask that question of them. I think also looking back, just your previous experience in getting the data and seeing the results, there'll be the statistically validated survey results. And if we stay with Cobalt, you might remember there was kind of a colored cross-reference grids that essentially that data was presented in. So yes, there'll be the statistically valid results of that sampling size, and then there also is the results of open-ended questions and of anyone else who took the survey. So you'll also see that information. So you'll end up seeing all
Yeah.
of the information that we get in both samples. But we will absolutely talk with Cobalt and as a team to figure out are there ways to include perhaps social media as part of the sample size somehow. I don't know how that would work, but we'll talk to them about it.
Okay. So question,
I
we
don't
have a
know that this is-
2,000 sample size, and now that we add this, it might be more than 2,000. But I'm looking at the return and to your comments that it is statistically valid on a,
Representing our
Yeah.
community, right?
yeah,
And one day, we're gonna have to figure out, and there's technology to do that, but everyone uses mobile for everything these days. Text surveys. We gotta figure out a way as a government agency to sort of catch up to the private sector and use this tool, because we could get a lot more participation as well through it. And it might be, but this outside survey company they're the experts in what they do. Working with governments, I've learned, and in the private sector, I've learned that the private sector is usually ahead of the government sector when it comes to these types of things. So I think encouraging them or pushing them to utilize mobile technology for this wherever possible still has to be valid, still has to be validated, so people aren't throwing in 50 responses from the same person type of thing. But anything we can do to encourage them that we'd like to go in that direction, I think that could help us.
Councilmember Keeley, it's a great suggestion, and we have already confirmed with our vendor that we're able to do it. I'll let Mike speak more to
Awesome.
the opportunities that we
Yeah.
have.
Yes,
Did I
yes.
steal your thunder on the next slide or something?
You did actually.
No.
This is the last
Sorry.
slide.
No,
so
you didn't.
didn't
So
steal
you
any
were
thunder. We are able to do things like text and emails, things like that. Obviously, part of it is the data that we have. Getting text phone numbers can sometimes be complicated or expensive, but
Yeah.
there are new ways. If you look back even 10 years ago, it was robocalls or
That's right.
phone calls
Yeah.
is the only way that they did it. And so they are evolving, admittedly slower maybe than we would hope. But there are methods that we can tap into to try to reach a broader audience and get higher participation.
okay. So there are some things we're going to be talking to the consultant about, and then we're going to delay it and do the survey next year. Is that what I'm hearing from everybody? And then our staff will have conversations with regard to the different methodologies and how do we incorporate some of the ones that are not mailed out information, but are going to be taking the survey, whether it's on our website or a different method. So, okay, is that okay with everything? Greg and Mike, you got the information you needed from this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, very good, good work.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
because I went through it and I thought, okay, I was focusing on our strategic priorities, and I want to see how well our people were aware of all of that, and then I saw that it was incorporated into the questions, so, good. Okay, the next one is our neighborhood pilot program. And Bethany, the stage is yours. Did you want to make any remarks, Greg, before Bethany takes over?
I will turn it over to Bethany.
Bethany, floor is yours.
We're really close. We're close. You know what? While we're getting the slide presentation up, Mayor and Council, I will love to recognize some of the members of our project team who have been working on this project over the last few months with me together. Adam is here from Finance, Bridget from Natural Resources, and Amber and Ishmael from Community Engagement are some of the folks that have been helping, and I've been really grateful to have the enthusiasm and expertise and perspective of everyone in this team. So,
Well, great work, you
yeah,
guys.
absolutely grateful to have
Nice work.
wonderful people involved in this, from many of them from the beginning. So, Mayor Council, like you heard, we are here to talk about the neighborhood pilot program that has really evolved a little bit from the participatory budgeting pilot program that we have been talking about since 2023. So, just a little bit of background for those who may be hearing this for the first time. In May of 2023, we completed and presented to the City Council a white paper about participatory budgeting. And from there, we had the governance process where in September of last year, the City Council directed staff to design a participatory budgeting pilot program focused on neighborhoods. So from September through this summer, we had been working on kind of looking at some of how to design a program and what some of the early questions would be for the City Council for feedback. So in July, on July 9th, we talked in this room a little bit about participatory budgeting pilot program and what were some of the questions that we needed feedback on from the City Council. And then we've been, for the last 8 weeks, kind of taking that feedback and transforming it into what is now the neighborhood pilot program. So excited to tell you a little bit more about what that will look like this evening as we move forward. Just a quick reminder back to our conversation in July, there were a few things that we took away from our discussion with the City Council. So one would be that the community defines neighborhoods. So it's community-led in terms of what is the neighborhood boundary and things like that. We'll talk about all of this a little bit as we go. Grant funding, the City Council directed us to use grant funding of up to $100,000 from either the sale of surplus property or external sources. Our team did do some research on external sources and to this date haven't identified a grant, but we'll continue to look for those types of things as we go through the process. So thinking about, at this moment, the idea of the sale of surplus property, but certainly continuing to evaluate that. The idea, the direction was that neighborhood grants would be up to $10,000, so about 10 neighborhood grants of up to $10,000, kind of with that funding. And then the other piece of direction was that we should consider ways to reallocate staff and resources operationally in those program expenditures. So our team took a look at that and has some plans moving forward. So this is one thing I'm excited about, is this is a pilot program that's really an experiment that's designed to help us make outrageous efforts to reach and connect the community, to create a simple neighborhood organization and grant program. And then really the great thing is to be able to learn from the experience and adjust accordingly, right? So to get the ins and outs and the questions answered as we go, and then be able to really continue to refine the program through into the future. So there's 2 resources that are in your packet tonight that the team worked together to draft that'll really help guide neighborhood organizations through the process. So there's a neighborhood organization toolkit, which is if I'm a leader in the community and I want to form my neighborhood, it tells me all about how to do that. So that's kind of that first toolkit and gives me some resources that our teams will use to help guide those leaders through the process. And then the second piece is the grant application, so the actual form to submit their ideas for funding for the grant project. So I'll walk you through kind of both of those resources as we go here in our conversation. So the first question was really about how do we define neighborhoods? And neighborhoods we think about are these near home geographic areas where people live, work, and play. So how do we help quantify that and define what a neighborhood is? And we heard from the city council that a good thing to do would be to provide some guardrails or some guidelines that help us make some definitions or help us with the program. And so our team looking a lot at our research in the white paper, and then also looking a lot at just the geography, the unique characteristics of Burnsville. Use it as recommending using the two guidelines that you'll see up there, really geography and population, to help provide some guardrails to what a neighborhood would be. So typically neighborhood boundaries will be within a walking distance of about 1 square mile. And then no less than about 200 households or approximately 500 people that would make up a neighborhood. So our team will help if there are, as we're walking along with leaders who might be interested in forming a neighborhood organization and defining those boundaries, to let them lead that process, but to help them kind of figure out what that might mean for their particular neighborhood, right? Come up with a neighborhood name, come up with what those boundaries look like as part of them getting started in the process. Then the guide, the organization toolkit, outlines some things that we'll do to sort of provide support to neighborhood organizations. Really helping to come alongside them or give them some resources and assistance as we start up their neighborhood. So helping them host a neighborhood meeting or a startup meeting. Helping to develop leaders. We do a lot of leadership development internally through Burnsville University and in some of our organizational development programs. So to be able to extend that and offer it to leaders in the community that are interested in being a part of the program. And then helping to communicate. So if I were going to form a neighborhood organization, I might not know how to communicate with the people in my neighborhood. So that's a place we can help in getting the word out to the folks that are inside those boundaries to make sure that they're invited to participate. We'll provide gathering space here at City Hall. So if there's meetings or gatherings, then they need room, we'll help with that. From communication standpoint, so we'll have a neighborhood webpage that allows anyone from the community to come and see if they are in a currently established neighborhood or if they want to start one up. We'll also provide, as part of our expenditures for the program, we'll provide print and mailing services so that we can get flyers out or whatever it might be to the folks that want to get involved. We'll make ourselves available, so if there's consulting that the folks need on their project or if they have an area of interest that they want to talk to the city about, will be available. We will host an annual all neighborhood meeting just to get the folks together that are participating so they feel supported and they are connected to our team. A lot of the things that our team was excited about was that connection point to neighborhoods and the unique opportunity that offers. So being able to be that support. And then just ongoing, right? So our team's kind of planned out that if a neighborhood has quarterly meetings, we can be a resource to them through those processes. Just by way of timeline, thinking about what we're looking at moving forward, our team, and I'll talk a little bit about next steps towards the end, but our team is planning to introduce the neighborhood organizations and grant pilot program in January to the community, with the idea that we give enough time throughout the year next year for folks to learn about it, to reach out to us, to organize, to hold their meetings, to brainstorm ideas for their projects. So giving plenty of time for that with kind of a grant application period or grant application due period in that fall time, late summer, August. And then the idea of awarding grants in September, but also with the idea that neighborhoods have a year to actually implement their projects. So there's, they have the winter, spring, summer to plan those things out and actually execute them throughout the year. So in terms of, so that's kind of, if I'm organizing a neighborhood, that's kind of what I need to know if I'm going to submit a grant application here. There's kind of a 3-step process, so trying to make it as simple as possible to participate. We want to have folks just submit the kind of the early neighborhood organization request is just to have them submit a recognition request so that we know that they want to be connected. So it's a really simple form where we can help them define their neighborhood and they can just give us their contact information so we can stay connected. Certainly then there'll be time for them to work with their neighbors to define an eligible project. And then last piece is submitting that grant application. It's just a 1-page form. Gus has some parameters on there so they know what kinds of projects are eligible or what expenses they need to think about. But just a way for them to simply describe their project and what they're requesting. to give us the information we need. So, a few things, just so folks know some of the what we're looking at, those grant expenses and kind of thinking about what's eligible. We talked a little bit about early in our conversation last in July about with the using the funding source of the sale of surplus property. What guides us is the public purpose expenditure law. So thinking about those guardrails on what expenses or what projects can be funded. They can use funds that do the following three things: benefit the community, relate to the purpose of the city, and do not have a private benefit. So that is kind of our guiding principles as we go from that statute. So some of the ideas, I know City Council suggested giving some ideas for what the types of projects that a community or a neighborhood might fund, maybe neighborhood community building event, neighborhood assets like signs or benches, neighborhood spaces available to all like a community garden. Those are of course just a place to start. We know that neighborhoods are going to have the best idea of what projects might work for them, and so we'll help them along the way if they brainstorm or if they have questions about what's eligible to be funded. And then how it would work is neighborhood organizations would be eligible to, we are proposing to apply every year, considering the project moving forward, and then we'll review the projects for eligibility and then notify neighborhoods that are have their projects funded. And then kind of one piece on the back side is that when a grant is awarded, projects can be funded one of two ways. So by reimbursement, so if there's, they would need to be just an itemized receipt so we would know that the expenses were eligible, or direct payment where the city's actually kind of entering into that contract and agreement with the vendor or the supplier and paying the invoice directly. So just the last piece in terms of our team kind of reevaluating kind of what would this project take for staff hours and kind of individually the different roles on our team that would have to be involved. With a simplified program, staff estimates about 1,500 hours and about 1,500 hours of staff time and about $25,000 in expenses. And that's with assuming 10 participating neighborhoods with that amount that we talked about at the beginning, kind of. So a few things about when we look at where the staff time is going to primarily be coming from for the program. There'll be, of course, a project team continuing to meet regularly, but community engagement will really take the lead in managing the neighborhood organizations and being that primary point of contact connection with the neighborhoods. Finance will facilitate neighborhood grant administration. So if there's questions about what's eligible, if there's things like paying invoices, those types of activities will go through finance. And then really looking at what are the ways, right, with kind of limited capacity in our staff, what are the ways that we can possibly reallocate resources for the program, and thinking about our events that our recreation and community engagement teams kind of do as a matter of their programming. Our plan is to offset these resources by pausing some of our special events during the pilot program. So some of the ones our teams identified as Excellent Adventure, Pride, Juneteenth, Halloween. We are currently undergoing an assessment of our events, and when we think about impact, we want to make sure that we're having the widest impact and of the events that we're putting on. And so just to pause some during the program to allow us to get this pilot up to speed and going, and then to reevaluate and making sure that we're having the widest impact in those events moving forward. Just the last few things when we think about our next steps. In October of 2024 and kind of November, there's a few things we're doing this fall to make sure we're ready for the program. So getting the program materials designed and kind of getting that brand feel for what the program is going to look like for our community. Finance will establish a special revenue fund so that it's ready when we have the eventual deposit of sale of city-owned property. In December 2024, we'll continue working on our communication plan, a robust communication plan for getting the word out to the community, and then designing our webpage with the idea that we'll, again, introduce the pilot program in January. And then the last note you'll see I have on here with March 2026 is again, thinking about that timeline, if we work through the pilot program, kind of with that September 2025 date for awarding grants, we want to make sure we get a little ways into the pilot where folks are having their projects funded into the fall, and still evaluate with the city council how the pilot program went early on in 2026, so that we can make any adjustments kind of as we continue it on, and what's the right timing and things moving forward.
So
So that's,
I
that is
want you
what,
to go back to the programs that you are pausing and reallocating resources, because some of the programs that we're pausing, each year that I've experienced, I see more and more people participating in some of these events, these special
Yeah.
events. For instance, the excellent adventures. Seems like each year there's more and more young families participating. And when people get used to those things and you take it away, they're not going to be very happy. The same thing with Pride and Juneteenth. So I want to understand how we're incorporating some of these events into other existing events. For it. The Halloween one, that one grows, and we have a big volunteer group from the Lions who look forward to this. I mean, even though I've handed out candy at those events in all kinds of weather, from sleet to snow to rain,
You carry the mail
and a
too?
lot, huh?
You carry the mail too?
No,
Through
but the thing
seasons?
is that families come out,
I know,
is what
yeah.
I'm getting at. They enjoy that, and it's
Yeah.
one of our fall events. Amber, how many times do we have to run and get candy for the Halloween event? Over and over and over again, because more and more families participate, and they enjoy it. So I want to understand what's happening to those events to offset this new grant program for all of this. So if you all talked about that, I think it would be beneficial to our residents who are big beneficiaries of these programs.
yeah, Mayor and Council, absolutely, great question. We know these are important. It's certainly not to say anything negative about the experience or what we're putting on with these events. We know they're definitely important to our community, to our teams. It's really a matter of thinking about, right, what was kind of the newest thing, or some of the more recent things that we could just put on pause or reconsider during the pilot program to free up some time, right? Unfortunately, there was not a lot of wiggle room throughout the organization. So certainly we know these are meaningful to folks, and our team has talked about internally, how do we make sure we don't lose momentum on those? How do we find other ways to recognize or consolidate or commingle different things throughout the year, so that we're not losing focus on those things. But we're, again, as we reevaluate our events broadly, what is the most impact, and how can we make sure that we can continue, right, those things into the future?
So, Mayor, council members, at the end of the day, reallocating resources isn't always the easiest discussion, but I think it's an important one for us to have. The council gave clear direction to me to reallocate resources to make neighborhoods happen. I think the really good news is that the project team, our team, is very excited about making neighborhoods happen. We believe that those connections are important ones. The conversation about what could we pause during a one-year pilot program to reallocate those resources was an extensive one among the project team, among the leadership team, among our executive team. And at the end of the day, I'll use the example of the Halloween event, right? That's a dog park event that we have perhaps seen less attendance over the course
Oh,
of time.
this is
for.
the dog one.
Yes.
So-
Not the
So
not
that-
the
Not the
Halloween.
Not the candy one.
So that particular
candy one
event,
for the families.
so and
Okay.
Bethany did a very nice job presenting this from my perspective and from our team's perspective about how I came to make these decisions. And at the end of the day, purely from a governance perspective, I view my role as taking the city council's direction and identifying in our operations where, in this case, do we have resources to potentially free up staff time to reinvest in another area. So the Halloween event, as an example, about 50 participants we've been estimating recently, right?
Okay.
If you compare that to some of the other events, whether it be Excellent Adventure, Pride, or Juneteenth, you're looking at potentially around 100 or 200 participants in those events. And when we look at things like Party on the Plaza, where consistently over the summer, as an example, we're bringing in 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, that's where the impact analysis became pretty clear to our team and to me in terms of where we could free up some capacity for a interim pilot period to assess how we would make these a commitment to neighborhoods happen. I think another important part about events is we owe you, staff owes you, the city council, from back in 2018, an impact assessment and a discussion on Party on the Plaza. We're in the midst of doing that work now with plans of bringing that back to you, I hope, before the end of the year. And as we are able to identify more data about our impact, and it's not just how many people show up, but it's also about using data like how many people show up to really understand reach to the community and how we're making connections. That's where I think that we can also parallel a conversation, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I'm expecting we're going to see that Party on the Plaza, as an example, is very popular, and we might want to invest more resources operationally in Party on the Plaza to do more of them, where we can integrate some of these special events into larger scale events that help us have a broader reach, make a broader impact to the community. So I think as we pause for a short period of time on these events to essentially allow us the staff time, that 1,500 hours that we are estimating we're going to need, then we can also parallel a conversation about how do we accomplish, Mayor, to your point, how do we accomplish some of these very same kind of focus areas in a more meaningful way through larger scale events.
Okay, so what do we call the Halloween? Because this is Halloween.
Stump me on that one.
The sugar giveaway contest, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. Do we call it Halloween tricks and treats?
Halloween Fest?
The Halloween Fest? Okay, that's still happening. You didn't take it away.
Yeah, it's,
To be clear, for you, council, and for the community, what we're saying is a 1-year pause on these 4 events
Yeah.
to allow us the resources that we've identified, the staff time resources that we've identified, and the current expenditure resources, that $25,000, to reallocate both time and those current expenditures to fund the neighborhood program.
Okay.
If I can ask a question?
Yeah. Kara?
Okay, so I know staff has been working on a culture direction internally, but also in how the city and residents interact with one another. And I think you were calling it, what was it, outrageous?
Efforts to reach and connect the
Yes,
community. Yep.
outrageous efforts to reach and connect with community. There we go. Does staff feel that the neighborhood grant project is moving that culture change forward? Is it in line with what you're trying to accomplish?
I would think so.
And I'll give that to Greg or Bethany, either one.
I'm going to let our team answer. I'll
Yeah.
turn it to Bethany or anyone else.
Great question, Mayor and Council. I think, yes, I will say unequivocally, the team was excited about the opportunity to find a new way, right, like to connect with some folks directly, to be able to establish those close-knit relationships with communities have that direct connection. So we have a few folks on the project team that are even newer to Burnsville. And so being able to bring some of that expertise or experience from previous experiences, it's been, from what we can understand, a benefit to that again, making that direct connection with some of our neighborhoods and our neighborhood leaders and those interested in being a part of an experience like that. So.
And I have a related question that feeds along with that. I know that public safety is top of mind at the moment, very top of mind amongst our residents, very top of mind amongst our staff. And in a one-on-one meeting when I was getting information about this, one of the questions that I have was, is there a public safety benefit to this? If there is, what are we seeing what that would be?
Mayor and council, I'll take that because Bethany's looking at me. Obviously, BJ and Tanya aren't here tonight. I apologize
Yes.
for that. They both had other things. So I'll do my best to represent their perspective. We were actually just talking about this again today in an executive team meeting. The short answer is yes, we believe that organizing neighborhoods and facilitating near-home connections has a positive impact, not just on our ability to connect with people, to communicate well, but also has a positive impact in terms of our strategic priority of safety, the well-being of our community, and just at the end of the day, our public safety operations. A good example is a recent one that we're talking a lot about from a staff perspective, and we still have some work to do with the community on, and that was the Red Oak shooting. At the end of the day, we believe that the more organized, the more connections we have in neighborhoods, the better ability we have to be flexible in our communication and agile, particularly when bad things happen. One of the examples that we pondered and didn't land on our current list of examples in this presentation or in our materials that we're still working through is the idea of neighborhood safety programs or encouraging things like block captains or neighborhood watches. That's an old phrase and some terminology, but nevertheless, kind of that focus on safety more near home being a very real possibility out of this program. And frankly, one that I think that we're going to hear as we roll this, should we roll this idea out, that we would hear from the community right away, would be my expectation. So I do think that we do think that there is a benefit of organizing and connecting with neighborhoods from a public safety perspective.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a resident online, Mr. Andrew Brose, who 1629 Knox Circle, who wants to comment about the events that are being paused. Can we bring Mr. Andrew Brose on, please? Hello, Mr. Brose. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, you need to be unmuted. Okay. Can't hear you. No, you're still muted.
No, he's not muted. I'm not sure why we can't hear him.
Okay.
Still can't hear.
We've got some technical issues, sir. Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay, try again.
Try again, Mr. Brose. No, still can't hear.
All right. Would it be okay if I read the comment that he sent me?
Yeah, why don't you read the comments?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Let's get back to that.
We'll
His comment is, I think pausing some of these events like Pride and Juneteenth send the community a larger message about the value of the people celebrated by these events.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. Is that what you wanted to, us to, okay, very good. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We're not sure why the.
Yeah, we're
why
not sure
the-
why we have the
it's not
technical
coming.
issues, but we're sorry. Okay,
Thank
at
you.
least we understand, so, you
Mayor and
put
Council,
in,
why don't we do this? Certainly, I can connect with
Mr. Brose?
with Mr. Brose,
Okay.
particularly due to these technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But regardless, I would want to do that anyway. So I'll make sure that we reach
yeah,
out. And
okay,
connect.
Mr. Brose, our city
Beyond this
manager,
comment.
Greg Lindberg, will connect with you. Okay, very good. Thank you so much for tuning in and and being a great engaged citizen. Thank you. Okay. Members of the council, any comments for staff and how they're moving this project forward and the steps that they have identified moving forward? Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gustafson.
I do like how this evolved into a grant program, because that's exactly what it is.
Definitely.
I do have some questions, though, and on what are neighborhood events that would be eligible for these grants?
Yeah.
Mayor and Council, so the language we have there is on community building events. So the idea is when we think back to our public purpose expenditures, and it's things that benefit the community as a whole. And so the idea there is building relationships, making those near home connections, benefits our community to have those, to some of what Greg was saying about
Give me an
public safety and
example.
things like that. So just potentially, right, like a block party where maybe there's time to connect, those types of things. There are in our thinking about public purpose expenditure in the actual grant application, there are some things that aren't eligible by public purpose expenditure law. So things like alcohol or gift cards, or that's why our team would have to come alongside if a neighborhood was interested in an event like that, to be careful to make sure that the neighborhood understood what was eligible for reimbursement in an activity like that versus what's not eligible. So there'd be some work on our side to help make sure that that was clear.
So if a neighborhood wants to beautify and they have sort of like a cul-de-sac island and they want to plant plants and grow trees, those are eligible
Yeah, so that was I think one of the examples you saw on slide
because
there
we've
was.
done that
yep,
before and it
an
was highly
idea-
successful.
Yeah, so
And it beautified the,
spaces available to all, community garden, yep, signs, benches, those, yep, just what you're saying there, Mayor.
yeah,
I just want to follow up. I'm really having a tough time with pausing these festivals. These festivals were created to bring our community together, and they're being successful in bringing our community together. Now we're going to quit doing that to try and experiment to beautify cul-de-sacs or throw parties in neighborhoods. And I really struggle with that one.
okay.
It's, I just don't see how pausing events that actually is bringing our community together gives us a better outcome.
Yeah, I listened to all of that when staff was informing us about the progress of their work in our individual meetings. And I've done a lot of thinking about that, as long as what I'm hearing is that we're incorporating it on Party on the Plaza. But there has to be some way of engaging that community so that they become, they're aware. I don't know how you're going to,
I don't know how you're going to do that either.
for,
And to be clear, the council asked me to
Yeah, no,
work with the
we-
team
we-
to
Exactly.
reallocate
Some people asked you to
resources.
do.
No, and you found a way to do it. Yeah.
And I think the important thing is, yes, I believe that we have an opportunity to look at Party on the Plaza perhaps differently in the future, and that these two conversations will be aligned from a timing perspective. What I'm not saying is that we can replicate these events in Party on the Plaza, because again, this is a matter of resource allocation. So I want to be clear on what it is that we've come
Yeah.
to here.
Because the other thing is that we have partners that have helped us with Juneteenth and with Pride. They should be notified to the pause and what that means. Because there are church communities that were part of the Juneteenth partnership. And, yeah, there has to be conversations with all of them, and
Mayor, absolutely, that's important to us. When we think about the outrageous efforts to reach and connect the community, that is certainly part of it, so,
Yeah.
absolutely,
and we value our partnerships,
absolutely.
and we want to make sure that they are informed. Yeah, Vince?
I just want to thank our staff for putting this together. When this started, I was a bit hesitant because I wasn't sure how this was going to come together, but I'm very pleased with the outcome here. I think Burnsville needs this probably more today than when we started this project, in light of the year that we've had and the losses we've experienced. And my hope is that this is a starting point to something much bigger, that we can bring neighborhoods together and start taking care of each other, keeping an eye on each other, and just looking out for each other. And I feel like this really plants a seed, or at least helps in that ability. I understand every time we make something like this, sometimes we have to make sacrifices, and I don't want that to overshadow the importance of a program like this, because this is, I think at the end of the day, going to be incredibly beneficial to our community and kind of help us reacclimate and come together. Because I know right now a lot of people are worried and scared, and I think everyone on this council probably feels that to a certain extent, because there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and I think this is a good program to help kind of heal some of that. So I do appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this to bring it to this point.
Yep. Then,
Well, first about the project, never would I have guessed that the participatory budget project that started a couple, 2-3 years ago would evolve into a neighborhood grant program, which I applaud staff. When I think I said in the first meeting where it sort of hit me that it was no longer what it started out to be, and it became a neighborhood grant program, I was thrilled. Because in the end result, our citizens are redirecting money, but it's actually being done in a way that is direct to a neighborhood, and it's improving our city. And as we all go around and door knock every 4 years, or we drive around, or we visit with neighbors, and we see how the city has aged over the years, I think it's more incumbent on us as an organization to reinvest in our city. And this is a method of reinvesting, just like our home improvement loans that are set aside and paid back after the home sale happens. And, all these things that we've created over the last few years that I know Councilmember Gustafson talked about wanting many years ago, and I know he was very happy we got it. And so I'm glad that this particular project has turned into something more like what we all agree with and can get behind. I think there's a lot of opportunities. One of my questions in our update meeting was, well, what would qualify because of that state law? It started to narrow it down, right? But we're a city of hundreds of cul-de-sacs, so there's a lot of opportunity there. There's some common area in neighborhoods where there's right-of-way, improvements. And then certainly as simple as having neighborhood get-togethers. And so I agree with Councilmember Workman. This year has been tough. And we need other opportunities to come together as a community. And I like block captain. It might be a term from 20 or 30 years ago, but it still really applies. Neighborhood leadership and people that care about their neighborhood and watching and keeping an eye out is important for any city. Addressing the pausing of those events, the reason I liked it is because I liked it being part of other things. And I really, it comes back to the model. Should the city be involved in things that are citywide and broad or very niche and specialty? And the model that we follow with our 4 legacy events, well, 3 now, is there's a nonprofit that takes the lead and the city partners with them for public safety and public works. And I think that's the model that these other specialty events should follow. Let's offer it up. Allow these nonprofit groups to form and take the lead, because I think they'll do a lot better job, quite frankly, of driving attendance to those events. But if they become, if they were going to stay standalone, if they become potentially part of a bigger community-wide event, all the better. I still think there should be that nonprofit group that really takes the lead on it, because they're going to be the best at reaching, communicating, marketing, and engaging the community members of those groups to get the attendance as high as possible. So pausing it, rethinking that, coming back with a different approach, engaging the community to step up and be a part of it, just like the festival, the international festival, the former Art and All That Jazz, and the current Heart of the City. They're all driven by a nonprofit group, and the city steps up and partners on some other things. And that might force us as a council to have a discussion about, well, how do we address those emerging nonprofits for those specialty events then? Do we treat it like a legacy event? Do we have a different sort of, like another group, right, where we provide public safety and public works to be able to block a street, provide extra public safety so those events can happen? We can cross that bridge when we get to it, but we should be open to it. Thank you.
Well, since our last discussion and as all of this evolved, and we talked about the grant opportunities that were already in effect. And then when members of the council started to see that, yes, grant opportunities for these kinds of neighborhood enrichment is valuable. And I've seen that throughout my time in office, how they benefit neighborhoods. And we talked about all the different things that have happened throughout all of that, from the beautification of neighborhoods and cul-de-sac initiatives to rain gardens to
Shoreland,
all the
going back
different
to
buffer
nature, right.
zones
Yeah,
within
the buffer,
our
yeah, shoreline buffer.
lake areas. All of these things have been very successful in bringing the community together, because all of the neighborhoods around our water bodies all came together with all of those kinds of activities and events. This just enhances it and gives it a little bit more, but it is moving in a direction where we have a source of funding, for instance, the sale of properties rather than using general fund, because how we funded these other grant programs were external funds, whether they came from the state government, from nonprofit, from a foundation, or outside entities. And so we have a funding mechanism. And so with the evolution of that, and I also commend staff for the work that they've done, and they pivoted. And there's a pathway forward to do all of this. But the parties on the plaza are a big hit. So if there's some way to continue
are.
to, they're a big hit. And they bring a lot of people. Because it's again, it's a community coming together to know each other, to celebrate together and enjoy different foods and experiences, and I think they're great. The festivals also are a much bigger event, but the Party on the Plaza, people have something to look forward to each and every month. And they're great, so to staff,
Yeah, and Mayor,
great,
if I may?
great work, yes,
Yeah.
Kara.
And, yeah, and likewise, thank you, staff. When I first proposed this, I know it was a little frustrating because I absolutely refused to define it in almost any way. And I did so purposefully because I didn't want to already block us off from opportunities. And I knew with mostly staff, a little bit of council, mayor, but mostly staff, working on this, that they would find something unique and appropriate for our city. And they've absolutely done that. I mean, this is an incredible program. It's the right pilot, it's the right parameters, and it's most definitely the right time. And I do see this as, could it be beautifying? Sure. Could it be for some specific infrastructure need that a neighborhood needs? Absolutely. Could it be something to increase safety in our community? Absolutely. And so I like that staff is keeping this with appropriate guardrails open, because our neighborhoods are going to come up with some incredible ideas. And if this pilot project, we review it and then it continues on in years to come, just think what our neighborhoods are going to look like in 5 to 10 years. Like that factor of multiplication of what that's going to end up looking like. How our relationship is going to be with our residents, how our residents' relationships are going to be with one another. I am beyond excited about this. I know staff has been really excited about this and seeing the possibilities. I am very thankful to council for working so hard on this as well. You know, asking questions, you know, trying to also push for the best possible thing for our community. So I'm really excited about this. I'm beyond thankful for what staff has done, and very thankful to council as well on considering this, because yes, Party on the Plaza is a big hit, and I remember when I first proposed that, and it was
The
like,
Rochester model.
yes, and they were like, what is this crazy thing? But again, staff took that, and they didn't just do a replication of that. Staff took that and made it the correct thing for our community. So very, very, very well done on that.
Yeah, our staff gets all the credit because they have done a
100%.
phenomenal job on all of these things.
Yep.
And I've said many times, we can sit here and make decisions about things, but the execution and the delivery of that is the staff. So Greg, to you, Bethany, and to the whole team that's here tonight, thank you so much for all of your great work. I can tell you that, and to all of the members of the council, the evolution of getting to this grant program, because I know it works. I have seen how it has worked in our community throughout the years. So thank you for that. And
Just to be
Yeah.
clear, I like the grant program. I like going in the neighborhoods. I think, you know, beautifying the neighborhoods are fine. I think helping houses fix themselves up is
Yeah.
even better for our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But I do not like put it on the backs of two sets of people in our community with Pride and Juneteenth.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I will not vote for this because I don't think we should do it that way.
All right. Well, I am going to trust that staff is going to find
I don't
a
trust
way
it can
to
happen.
incorporate that, and perhaps in terms of our party on the plaza and how that's going to unfold. So, and thank you for your thoughts around all of that too. So,
I'd just
okay.
like to say, I'm not voting in favor of this on the backs of any people. This casts a wide enough net that includes every member of our community. And I would welcome any person from any background to apply for this loan, and I know that they will, or grant rather. Let's try not to politicize this.
Okay. So, Greg, what do you need from us with regard to this to move forward?
Mayor and Council, great question. This was an update presentation. Certainly appreciate the conversation.
So there's more to come.
We will continue our work.
Yeah.
The
Go back
intention at
to
this
your
point in time would be that
Next step slide.
that the full rollout of the program will happen by January of 2025, where we'll be communicating the opportunity really to do two things: to organize your neighborhood and to apply for a city grant. Next steps, Bethany talked about this, but I think it's been a few minutes, so just to repeat them. In October, we're really going to
Yeah.
work, the project
And
team's really going to
that's-
work to
that's-
design program materials. I'll keep you updated
Yeah.
in my written updates to you. Likely a written report before the end of the year as well, just to kind of outline where we're at. Clearly, in the next couple of months, we'll be connecting in many ways with our community partners on some of the
Yeah.
issues that came up tonight, as well as others that are going to emerge as we
Yeah.
do what our team is really good at doing, which is connecting and communicating well with the community and with our partners. So we'll do that. By December, we'll have our communications plan ready. We'll have a website up and ready. Again, we'll share those with the council. If the council wishes, we certainly can come back to another work session at some point as we either introduce the pilot program or as we work through it. Right now, my plan would be, at the very least, to be back to you in March of 2026 to really go through the evaluation work of the first year of the pilot program.
Yeah. So, but, we'll have an update in October about the materials. Is that the next, or is this staff's next steps? Because, and in November, there's a special revenue fund that's going to be established. Is this all staff work?
Yes, Mayor, I would look at this as being
Just-
largely staff work. Obviously, we'll keep the council and the community informed along the way. If you wish to have another conversation about it, we certainly can add it to a work session between now and March of 2026. But I really see the next significant conversation being an evaluation conversation of what we learned through the first year as we keep you updated along the way.
Yeah, I would just say, members of the council, I think an update on an introduction of the pilot program and in your council weekly to just update us on how things are going.
Absolutely do that, and as things evolve and their conversations need to happen, clearly we can come back to a work session
Yeah.
or any other discussion. that
Yeah,
needs to happen.
because once you have the website up, just let us know the website so we can go take a look at it. And the program materials and the design. And we can always, your council weekly is a good method of communicating, but I see this is staff's work that you're presenting.
Certainly, I'll keep you updated along the way. There might be a need for another conversation. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, and communicate towards the evaluation of what we're learning as well. So
Okay,
that's what we'll do.
all right. Thank you, everyone. And the next item on the agenda is Community Builders Awards. And Michelle, this is yours. Greg, did you have any comments to make? Or-
I don't. I'll turn it over to
Okay,
Michelle.
Michelle?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. This year, we did receive 9 nominations for Community Builder. Hopefully, I won't butcher the names too terribly. Amanda Ferris, Jennifer Green, Lori Linsney, Letitia Suffel, Michael Hunter, the Semling family, Suela Bassi, Yusuf Haji, and Carrie Owens. Those nominations were in your agenda packets, and I stand for any questions.
They all are within the policy,
Correct,
so they all meet the eligibility of the policy?
correct.
Okay. Members of the council, we have 9 candidates that are being submitted before us. And they all meet the eligibility factor of the policy that we have in place. Yeah,
I just want to cite I don't know if I've ever seen this sitting on the council, but the young family, the children who are taking on this fairly significant recycling of all I was like
I know.
welling up tears reading and seeing the pictures and then the pictures of all how they organized it all.
I
and
love
the work
that.
they do. I mean, first started reading, I thought, well, how big could this be? And then it just got bigger and bigger, and then the pictures were like,
Whoa.
that is
whoa.
incredible. That kids that young are taking that on. That was a new one. I thought it was fantastic.
It is. It's the first time that I've seen that.
That was
amazing. Amazing. They're, yeah. Okay, any other comments? If not, we will recognize all 9 candidates.
October 22nd.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, staff, for all of that. And then now we are going to roundtable. There's no items on roundtable except reports. Vince, you have reports?
The festival was wonderfully put on this year. No hiccups. Well, one small Wi-Fi hiccup. Dan probably saw more hiccups than I saw.
You're watching your kids.
Funny story about that. I'll let Dan
Okay.
maybe speak more to that, but other than that, I got nothing.
Danji?
Nothing till next week at the LMC meeting. I think it's next Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. Kara? Okay. Dan Kay? Congratulations.
Well, it was Vince hit it on the head. This was our 3rd year with a lot of new people. And it seemed like we hit that 3rd year stride where we got into a rhythm. We worked out all the bugs in the first 2 years. We had a few things that popped up, like the VIP bathroom was so dark because it was behind the tent and there was no light in the area that you went in and closed the door and you're basically in a pitch black room. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, it was a good thing, but if you weren't, it was probably something that you did. I couldn't help it. And I'm a Rodgers fan, but he's with the Jets now, so who cares?
Playing very well.
And we're gonna add a few more bathrooms in the bathroom area because we still had lines that were a little bit too deep, and we spread some more out. But we gave more room to the carnival. They brought the best ride set I've ever seen that I've been to. I walked through it and I went, wow, I don't know how any small child or young person or teenager can't find something they're gonna love in this carnival area. We ended up with, it didn't make the paper, but for those of you watching that, or watching the replay, we had a pro skateboarder on Saturday, Elijah, come from California, and he drew a tremendous crowd. Zombie Skateboard Shop promoted him. All of the skateboarders and the employees of the shop were super excited. We've tried for 3 years to get one. We were unsuccessful the first 2 years. 3rd year, charm, I guess. We got him. So that got one there. So it was great. And we said, can we just book you right now to come back next year, because we want a longer than 2 weeks advertising that you're actually coming, because that's how late we got wind or the news that we had secured him. And he was a great hit. So the bands, the crowds, and, you know, Mother Nature blessed us on Saturday with about as perfect a Minnesota weather as you could dream up. It was fantastic. So we had a record day on Saturday. We set a new record overall. We look at the numbers of people. We have drone footage so we can estimate the crowds throughout the day. I think overall, when we have our download and awards dinner, it's going to be a mostly successes and celebrating and making some notes of how we can fine tune it next year. But MBTA, well, first I want to go back. This all happens because of folks like Vince who come in and he sets up the POS, helps Robert Timmerman, who's a fantastic cash handler, Skip and Jason are operations chairs, BJ, who is, boy, he's there at 6 in the morning until midnight or later. I mean, it takes a village. We have 13 board members. We have about 25 on our volunteer event committee, which is growing by a couple people this year, and then another 125 or more that show up Friday and Saturday that converge. Lions
the
Club.
Lions was
Lions is
huge.
Huge. You know,
The
I heard
parade.
many years ago the Lions was just, you know, part of the original groups that created this event decades ago. They're back involved in a big way, and we're so excited about that. We expanded the inflatable area. Many of the staff
Yep.
of
Yeah,
watching
the
those.
Lions took care of that inflatable area.
It was sensational, and so really a lot more people got involved this year than last year, and everything just went so much better. But it's all these volunteer groups, these booster groups, the Lions.
That Val
church
Boswick
groups
is
and-
really terrific also. You have to
She's a board
acknowledge-
member and she's our volunteer chair, and man, is she a dynamo. I mean, her energy and
And she
smile
likes
is so
to spread
contagious.
all of that. I mean, she had 3 people that she nominated.
Yes, she is, and Lori, I didn't want to speak, I'm biased, so I just let the council say their piece on the Community Builders Award. Lori is, Leisney is an incredible volunteer. She's just one of many who steps up in a huge way that pulls together that event. So it's funny, I still hear it every year. I'm like, well, the city should do this next year. And I go, well, and I announced it on stage several times. They're like, we're a 501c3. We're run by all volunteers. The city is our greatest and biggest partner. We compliment them. We thank them. We thank the public safety, public streets, and staff because we couldn't do it without them. But the planning and all that is done by these volunteers, and it's a 501c3 festival fundraiser event. And we give back to about 20. This year it's going to be maybe a little bit more than 20 nonprofit groups. So it's still perceived, and always will be, as a city event, right? Like, the city does all of this, right? The city puts all this on. Yeah, that's good. Go ahead and go with that. So anyway, it was all good. MBTA, I'm going to attend as chair of the MBTA board, the American Public Transit Association convention.
Yeah,
MBTA has.
That's great. APTA, I used to go to APTA all the time.
It's in Anaheim, late September, first few days of October. The convention, I would call it the expo, is October 1st and 2nd, and that's the days that I'm going to target going because I want to work the expo with the MBTA leadership, but also attend an awards dinner. I think it's maybe the 30th or the 1st. MBTA is up for 2 awards and receiving 2 awards. So there will be 2 or 3 folks from Luther and a few of the staff members that are going to be out there for the entire convention as they normally are. But as board chair, I have the opportunity to attend, and I'm happy to go and learn more about the transit industry.
It's really,
Very good one.
because it's great because it's global.
Yes.
APTA is global.
And it'll help with my role as I finish the rest of this year as chair of the National League of Cities Transportation Committee. It's going to sort of fill in some blanks and help me better prepare for the NLC City Summit, which I'm going to be very busy again, as I was in DC, with several, rail, transit, air, et cetera, types of committee hearings and presentations. So looking forward to a busy fall. I-35 Solutions hasn't met for 3 months. We're meeting Thursday morning. So we'll get the band back together after a summer brief reprieve and get back on track with I-35 Solutions. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing to report. And with that, if there's no other items to come before the body, we stand adjourned by acclamation, and then we will reconvene for the special budget work session. So we will take about a 25-minute break and then reconvene.
Debate
Okay.
starts in an hour.